Hi, good people, and welcome to Making the Most of Mentee Check-ins, mentoring as an employee employment retention strategy. My name is Charlene, and I work at Mentor. It's super exciting to have you all here to tune into this session. We're just beginning, so we're going to give folks about a minute to come on in and come on through. While we wait for more folks and attendees to join us, we are going to add kind of just a warm-up question in the chat. So right now in the chat, I am placing a question. That question is, what was your favorite job experience and why? Tell us in the chat. Say hi. We'd love to hear from you in the chat and let us know what was your favorite job experience and why. And I look forward to seeing the responses in the chat. Oh, we have some answers flowing in. Someone really likes their current job. They're very happy with it, which is always nice to hear from colleagues that they like their current job. Um, Someone had worked at a law firm once, teaching career and technical curriculum to students, which is awesome. Summer camp counselors, working at a museum. Good afternoon, Michael, and happy Pride and happy 4th of July to you too. Thanks so much. Other folks are noting their current job. We appreciate you all sharing in the chat. And for those good people who just joined us, hello, my name is Charlene, and I work at Mentor. I will be your facilitator and moderator for this session today. And we are talking about what our favorite job experience was and why in the chat. Just a way to get to know each other and welcome each other into this space. We are so excited to have you all here. So as folks enter, please feel free to answer that warm-up question about what's your favorite job experience and why. And I'm going to begin our session formally. So again, I shared with you all at the top of the call. My name is Charlene, and I'll tell you more about the work I do here at Mentor. I do serve as the Senior Director of Systems Innovation, and workplace mentoring is essential. As you all know, it really works to close opportunity gaps by creating important networking experiences for our young people. And we really have an opportunity to help them develop their career goals and tailor mentoring to young people's passions and interests. So I'm so excited that you all are here today. We hope you're here because you want to either provide mentoring in your workplace, but you aren't sure on where to begin, or your mentoring program working with an employer and you want to be able to provide some help and support to them. So if those are the reasons you're here, dear friends, you are in the right place. So it's an honor to have you here. I think it's also important to note on the next slide who Mentor is, just in case you aren't familiar with us as an organization. So at Mentor, we believe that potentially is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And a major driver of healthy development and opportunity is who you know and who's in your corner. And for those of you on the line who know a bit about Mentor, we welcome you to this session. And for those of you, this might be the first time you're attending a Mentor event, welcome. 30 years ago, our organization was created to expand opportunity for young people by building up the youth mentoring movement and the mentoring field. We serve as an expert in providing go-to resources and high-quality mentoring, and the result of our work has been more than a 10-time increase of young people involved in structured mentoring programs. We are excited to share that we went from serving hundreds of thousands to millions. And again, our organization provides evidence-based practice and high-quality research for the mentoring field. It's also important to note that Mentor recognizes that systemic and growing inequities manifest themselves as gaps in opportunities, networks, and access to adult relationships outside the families. So today, we activate a movement that crosses many sectors and frankly is as diverse and as broad as all you amazing people on this line. We do our best to seep into everyday life and everyday aspects of young people's life. We do our best to connect and fuel opportunity for young people everywhere they are, from schools to workplaces and beyond. So I shared at the top of the call that my name is Charlene, and I serve as the Senior Director of Systems Innovation here at Mentor's National Office. My goal is really to support industry professionals in making a profound and endless investment in diversifying their talent pools. I really believe that young people need equal access to opportunities that leverage their strengths and allows them to grow into a career. And so workplaces that really center relationships and mentoring provide young people a sense of belonging that they really need to realize their long-term career potential. So workforce development is definitely a passion of mine, and it's an honor to lead this work here at Mentor. I also want to note that our systems work specifically emphasizes that relationships will be a common thread from kindergarten to career, as well as any interventions that might happen in between or along the way. So it's our job to support all the caring adults to really understand that they have a critical role in the journey of a young person. I noted that Mentor is excited to amplify the movement with tools and supports that increase young people's social capital. And so our systems innovation work really focuses on education systems and workforce development systems currently. On our next slide, you will see a map of our affiliates. This map shows where we already have affiliates and we are still building and enthusiastically building. Our national and local offices play a huge role in being the unifying champion of the movement. What we do again is disseminate high quality resources and evidence-based practice all across the United States of America and beyond. So let me show you our table of contents and where we will go in this journey together. We're going to take a detailed look at the importance of mentoring in the workplace and why it matters. We're going to cover employee engagement, sustaining relationships, provide some guidance on mentoring young people in the workplace, and what to prioritize. We're going to round out our hour or hour and 15 minutes with a panel conversation with Jaral Mackey of McGill University and Mike Swigert of Aspen Institute. They are going to share their perspectives on why workplace mentoring matters and provide you some examples from the field. So it's going to be an exciting time together, and I'm so glad that you're here. I'm going to outline or start first by outlining the issue. I want to share the benefits and importance of workplace mentoring. I know a lot of you on the call already know these pieces. My colleagues are going to help by dropping a few links in the chat to reference to any resources and research that might help you in making the case for why workplace mentoring matters. So when I think of workplace mentoring, I think of social capital. I think of giving young people a chance to advance their power and privileges through occupational options. And on the next slide, you'll see a graphic that illustrates and shows that. In this time of social distancing and multiple catastrophes, Mentor really thinks a lot about power and privilege and really the opportunities that young people are provided in the job market. So last fall, Equitable Futures surveyed approximately 1,200 young people, ages 15 to 21, and they found that 39% of the respondents were either very concerned or extremely concerned that COVID would affect their future job prospects, meaning that 4 in 10 youth surveyed were really concerned that the impact of their professional future would be jeopardized by this virus, rightfully so. But in this time of a pandemic and racial injustice being recognized on national platforms, there's really a critical opportunity for employers to use their hiring power to provide young people with new career exploration opportunities and to enhance relationship-centered practices in their organizations. It's also important to note that Mentor's research really focuses, we have, forgive me, one piece of research that really focuses on what's happening currently at work for salary leveled employees. That research piece is the power of relationships. And in that piece, we found that salary level or above positions are more likely to report having had a mentor of their own when they were a young person. And specifically, that's figure 21 on page 19 of Power of Relationships. And one of my colleagues will drop that in the chat for you. So what we can infer is that the wisdom and guidance that mentors played in the role of employees help them get to where they are today. And again, concrete mentoring really plays a positive role in advancing someone's social capital. So we want to do our best to really think about the dynamics of power and privilege. And as caring adults, what can we do to help advance the emerging workforce's opportunities in the job market? On the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the research that's happening here at Mentor. So more of our research showed that just over a third of all adults, about 37%, feel it's important for companies to support mentoring. And this rose to 58% of those working at a company that already had a mentoring program. So not only do our nation's workers want corporate America to become more involved in mentoring, we know that when they do, actual rates of mentoring increase dramatically in their communities and their employees reporting greater job satisfaction. Mentor National and our affiliates focus on relationships and building strong on-ramps for employers to retain young employees. And so in the next slide, you'll see that the mentoring solution, which really focuses on relationships, I can share with you all that Mentor really has a robust history of corporate partnerships where we have provided mentoring solutions to companies who are making a deep commitment to hire young people. And we know that mentoring solutions work for for employers seeking to retain young employees and increase overall employee engagement. I referred to that a little bit earlier from the Power of Relationships survey. And that survey indicated that employees of companies that are engaged in mentoring are significantly more likely to be satisfied with their jobs than employees who weren't involved in mentoring. And the most relevant example I have to share with you is the National Mentoring Project, and I'll give you a little bit more detail about that soon. And Mentor's proposed solution, Connect, Focus, Grow. So Mentor partners directly with employers and nonprofits to provide strong on-ramps for caring adults and other leaders to really help young people obtain and maintain their employment. So by helping employers adopt a mentoring mindset and accessing turnkey solutions based on healthy relationships at work, Mentor really hopes to obtain more evidence about the power of relationships in the workplace. And this evidence will be an asset that can be useful to us all. And in the last year, I might add, Mentor's National Mentoring Project wrapped up. And in the wrap up, our goal was to support young people labeled opportunity youth in retaining their employment for past the 90-day period. And I'm really happy to share with you all that our goal was to support 75% of young people maintaining their employment. We got a chance to evidence and prove that mentoring in the workplace is so significant. And we supported and were able to prove 88% of our pilot population were able to maintain their employment past the 90-day period, just reemphasizing how important workplace mentoring really is. So I'd like to transition to the next slide and share with you a little bit about Connect, Focus, Grow and how that training and product at Mentor really helps propel success for our national mentoring project I just referred to. So Connect, Focus, Grow is a training, and it really prioritizes relationship building, goal setting, and a growth mindset for managers of young people, mentors of young people, and young people themselves. So the curriculum is highly interactive by design, and it aligns with effective adult learning practices as well as positive youth development practices. So Connect, Focus, Grow really emphasizes a mentoring mindset. And if you'd like to learn more about Connect, Focus, Grow, my colleagues will put a link in the chat, and I am always here to answer questions, and feel free to email me as well afterwards. I want to dive in and note that mentoring is an employment strategy that can be applied to work-based learning programs, internships, apprenticeships, full-time and part-time employment for young people. And so you'll see on the next slide that Mentor is really exemplifying upstream thinking by using labor market information to provide us insight on what companies' areas of needs are. And that really can enhance their interest in maybe using mentoring as a solution to employee engagement and retention. We know that this is making the most impact on our employer retention strategy, and we wanted to share that with you as well. So I want to move forward and share with you some quick tips and strategies to use when you're checking in with your young employees or mentees, and that's really around active listening. So if you get stuck in a conversation, I want you to remember to ask open-ended questions before trying to solve your mentee's issues. Some examples of some open-ended questions are on this slide, and we're going to show you bullet point by bullet point. So what are you working on this week? How are things going with your coworkers? Um, what could be going even better right now? And of course, the most important one, how are you? As you can see, again, these are open-ended questions. And as we go down the list of questions, they get a little bit more deep and a little bit more personal. And it's important to remember that when we're asking something as simple as, how are you? We're giving our young people the opportunity to talk to us about things inside and outside of work, but we're also letting them show up as who they are as a whole person. They get to go as deep as they want to go in their response, and that's significant. And that's what differentiates mentoring from coaching. We're trying our best to be asset-based and accept the young person as they are and help them reach a specific goal that they're interested in developing. So on the next slide, you'll see a little bit more about kind of mentoring the whole person. A helpful article from the Harvard Business Review really helps break it down into these bullets that you see here on the slide. And thanks to my colleagues who put that in the chat. So Rick Woolworth really breaks it down like this. So we have an opportunity to mentor the whole person, and what that looks like is sharing stories, asking great questions, having the end in mind. And so asking your mentee how they personally really define long-term success is pretty critical as a starting point. We want to make sure that we're able to kind of keep our objective of our mentorship at the forefront. And that also helps with kind of mentoring transition and mentor relationship closure as well, if you have a specific objective in mind. And the other one I want to emphasize is teaching them how to fish, right? There is an old adage, if you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. But if you teach a person to fish, they'll eat for their whole lifetime. So if any of you have done any previous trainings with us here at Mentor, or have read some of our resources and evidence-based practices, you'll know that a big component of the work that we do is really kind of being a guide on the side. In the long run, it doesn't help to tell your mentees what to do or how to solve their problem. We want to do our best to invoke critical thinking and asking open-ended questions and fostering creativity and really building up our young people's problem-solving abilities so that they're able to come to their own conclusions and feel empowered to face their future challenges. Rick Woolworth also notes unpacking your mentee's toolkit and thinking about their assets and remembering that most mentoring is caught, not taught. So apparently 90% of all of our communication is nonverbal. So your mentee is likely to absorb much more from the way we conduct ourselves than especially what we say. They're picking up on our nonverbal cues. So that really kind of wraps up and kind of emphasizes the significance of active listening. So what I'd like to do on the next slide is kind of note that as mentors and supervisors, we always want to help our mentees when they come to us with a challenge or problem. It's natural, and thank goodness we want to do that. One of my colleagues right now is lifting up a video I wanted to share with you all. So watch this video and please pay attention to the interaction between the two characters.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
I, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my...
I believe you're on mute.
It's never a Zoom webinar until we're on mute. Thank you so much. I was noting that obviously the video is playing on some traditional gender roles and cliches between female and male communication styles. Beyond that, what can we take away from it for our mentoring practice? Let us know in the chat. Any thoughts? Yeah, even when it's super hard to not offer advice, sometimes people just need you to listen and to slow down and listen. You all are spot on. We need to make sure that we are actively listening to our mentees. And soon I'll take you through a flow chart on how to do that. But for now, I'd like to look at one more concept about listening with me on the next slide. So it's interesting to note that different cultures think of listening in a number of ways. So here's another way to think about it. On this slide, you'll see that we have the traditional Chinese symbol for listening, to hear. You see that it has ears and eyes and undivided attention and a heart, but what doesn't this symbol include? Let us know in the chat. What doesn't this symbol include? A mouth, exactly. And that's right, because we don't listen with our mouth, we listen with the other parts of our body. And if listening is done right, it can really create a powerful and meaningful relationship. But most of the time, people listen with the intent to respond instead of the intent to understand. So some ways that you can show your mentee that you're actively listening to them, whether it's in person or via a video platform. You can not look at your phone or not look at another computer. You can repeat back what was said and check for understanding. You can ask engaging follow-up questions and use those open-ended question tips that we provided earlier in the call. And again, affirmative body language. So we want to keep in mind that the quote at the bottom from Meg Wheatley, like, why is being heard so healing? Think about when you feel really heard. What do you take away from that? Meg Healy says, I don't know the full answer to that question, but I knew that it has something to do with the fact that listening creates relationships. I know that when I'm fully heard, I feel validated. I feel understood. And it feels like somebody is really paying attention. We all want that, right? To be heard and to have power as a mentor to make sure that your mentee feels heard. Because frankly, you might be the only person listening around the topic of professionalism or in other aspects of their life. So keep those pieces in mind. Before I invite my amazing colleagues, Jaral and Mike on the line, I want to show you one more concept. This is how to help mentees solve their own problem. So no one wants to be told what to do, even if you're sure it's the right thing to do, like taking the nail out of your forehead, right? The thing is that we all want to kind of solve our own problems. And as an employer or a mentor, you're a caring adult and you have this really critical opportunity to help a young person develop transferable skills, concretely critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. But that only happens when we really allow them a safe space to process a situation. And again, this is where active listening comes in strong. So what you see is a flow chart, and we're going to go from left to right very briefly. So on this flow chart, we can follow along and note that listening is super critical. We want to listen and say nothing and use affirmative body language because, again, sometimes people don't need someone to solve their problem. They simply need to be heard. We're going to empathize. We're going to show empathy and validate someone's feelings, knowing that they have an opportunity to be understood. And from empathize, we have about 3 splits. We can ask questions to clarify, to make sure that we understand their feelings. We can empower them and prompt them to try to come up with their own solution. Or if it really comes down to it and they're asking for advice, sometimes we can help provide a frame and advice. We can frankly ask our mentee, in this conversation, are you looking for someone to listen or did you want some advice? And if they wanted some advice, you'd be like, okay, well, here are some options. And once it's all concluded, you can ask them, how did it feel to kind of use this method of dealing with our problems, right? We don't need them to answer right then and there, but we want them to reflect on the process. Because as caring adults and business professionals, we've learned and developed those problem-solving skills, and we want to impart them and support the emerging workforce to develop it for themselves. So with that, I hope was helpful with a few tips and strategies. Also thinking about why workplace mentoring is so important and critical. We're going to transition to our panel conversation. And you all, I am so excited that you get a chance to hear my amazing colleagues, Jaral and Mike. Jaral is assistant professor at McGill University, and Mike is a senior manager at Aspen Institute and also leads the Opportunity Youth Forum. And so I'd love to invite Jaral and Mike to turn on their cameras and have a conversation with me. Gentlemen, I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me, Charlene.
Thanks, Charlene. It's great to be with you.
So happy. I want you all to please tell the audience your name and why you're interested in this conversation about workplace mentoring.
Thank you. I can go first. As Charlene introduced, my name is Jaral Mackey. I study workplace culture, particularly how do you create an equitable culture in workforce. What excites me about today's conversation is that in thinking about mentoring, it's such an essential and critical linchpin to ensuring that young people have healthy careers from the very start and relationships that can grow with them as they progress throughout life. So that's a bit about me, and I'll turn it over to Mike to share as well.
Great, thanks, Jaral. So I'm Mike Swigert, he, him, with the Aspen Institute Forum for Community Solutions, which I am part of with a team of great folks, but I'm our workforce lead. So that's in this conversation. We run the Opportunity Youth Forum. We convene that, which is a national learning network and funding collaborative of partners in 35 urban, rural, and tribal communities around the country dedicated to improving career and education outcomes for opportunity youth, who Charlene talked about. And we're interested in this conversation because workplace mentoring is a powerful strategy to advance an equitable economy where all youth and young adults can thrive as leaders on the job, especially young people of color, especially those young workers who have faced structural barriers to career success and broader life success.
Thanks so much, gentlemen. I'm so happy to have you all here. I want to encourage our participants out there to please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A, and we will do our best to get to them towards the end of this conversation. Mike already alluded to why does workplace mentoring matter, and why does it matter to the stakeholders you work with? Jaral, I was wondering if you'd like to share and answer that question, and Mike, feel free to fill in any more pieces that you'd like to. So I guess that's my first question to you all. Why does workplace mentoring matter to you and to the stakeholders that you work with?
So part of why workplace mentoring matters to me and the stakeholders, the organizations that I study, is that it's one of the sort of few evidence-based practices that actually leads to creating a more equitable and diverse workforce. So you think about the role of mentoring within your organization. Part of the unique benefit that it does is that it provides young people with an opportunity in a low stakes way to understand what's the culture of this place, what's the hidden curriculum that I need to know in order to be able to navigate my way through the organization. But it also does a second thing that I think is really critical to uplift. If you think about mentoring, it's typically folks who are in positions of power are a little bit more higher in the organization, and then young people who might be in these lower entry-level roles that have less power. So it also provides an opportunity for individuals of power to understand what are the barriers in our organization that we need to address. So Charlene touched on this earlier. If we have an asset-based approach to mentoring, it's not simply we need mentees to change to fit into the organization. It provides a pathway so that folks who can do something about the culture to understand, well, what are we not getting right? Why are we losing people? Why are young people not moving up? And how do we create a more equitable and inclusive organization so that they can thrive and succeed?
Right on. Mike, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Gerald, that all resonates. I'll just double click on every single thing that that you said here. I mean, I'll just add, you know, we work with folks around the country in place-based settings, who are many of the folks on this call: training providers, workforce boards, community colleges, and employers. And you all know that career pathways are an essential part of building inclusive economies. Where employers can harness the full potential of talent to meet your local challenges and the challenges that we face as a country, and particularly in sectors that really matter, like healthcare, cybersecurity, sustainable energy, and more. And as Gerald said, mentoring is a strategy that works for young people of color, young people who've experienced barriers like homelessness, like being connected to the foster care system, who've been pushed out, shut out, but who have incredible lived experiences and innate talent to be successful. And it's a strategy that's deeply aligned with not just our values, but our learnings from over the past 10 years of being a cross-sector learning network, and what is really needed for opportunity youth to be successful, specifically mentoring.
I think Mike froze, and Mike will come back with us when they are able. It is the magic of technology, as we all know on this line. And so hopefully we can circle back to Mike's point. But Gerald, may I ask you, can you share your research on healthy workplaces, and how do you see mentoring really fitting into that viewpoint?
Yeah, Shirley, you touched on this a bit earlier when you mentioned the pandemic. We're in a place of sort of unrelenting violence towards folks of color, indigenous communities, and so on. Part of that means that right now, individuals are really going into the workforce, leading with their lived experiences. They're looking for, where are those places where I can feel seen, I can feel valued, and I can grow. And you might have heard the term that the Great Resignation. If they're not getting those things, it's the way the labor market is structured right now, they're much more likely to get it at other organizations. So what that means is that mentoring becomes a retention as well as a recruitment tool. How do we make sure that our young people know that this is a place where we are invested in your future, in your development? So the first strategy is really seeing it as a retention tool. The second piece of that is an orientation of mentorship that's not this sort of top-down relationship where it's managers or folks in the organization imparting their knowledge on young people, but really seeing it as a reciprocal relationship and helping young people develop what we would call their developmental network. So it's very unlikely that the job that young people are in now is going to be the last job that they have. So part of the strategy is that, particularly we care about issues of social capital and equity. How do we make sure that young people have trusted folks in their corner who's outside of their family that can grow with them as they navigate the labor market, as they move to different jobs? These are the individuals that's going to help them within their interviews. How do you do an interview? How do you negotiate a salary? How do you develop your staff and your team? So this piece of helping young people develop their developmental network is another sort of research-based strategy, and why at least the organizations that I'm a part of really see mentoring as being important.
Thanks so much, Gerald. That's super helpful. I want to also ask you a question that really focuses around kind of, how have you used workplace mentoring as an employment strategy, and maybe what strategies have you used when working with mentees or the emerging workforce? You mind sharing a bit about those experiences?
Yeah, so this is exciting, and I think about these questions within two buckets. So there's the workplace bucket and how I work with organizations to do that. And then as someone who recently completed their PhD at Harvard, there's also sort of my experiences within mentoring and being mentored.
Mhm.
When it comes to the academic side, one of the things that I noticed that mentoring is very helpful for, particularly in here, I'm thinking about peer relationships. How do we provide young people with opportunities to see themselves in these roles? So as a doctoral student, I find myself mentoring undergraduates and folks who are in master's programs who are saying, I think I want to get a PhD, but I don't know. And part of what my job is to not make a PhD the right answer, but what are those questions that I can ask them to really understand? What are you interested in? Is this a good fit for that? And how do you draw your own conclusions about this as a next step? And if you do, can I support you? Can I connect you with other individuals on that path? So I really see mentoring within that way. For me, it's just providing opportunities for young people in a sort of low stakes way to understand a bit better about careers that they might want to pursue. On the workplace side, another area where I've seen mentoring be really effective is in the hiring piece. So typically what happens in hiring is that you have a group of candidates and you pick the one who you think can do the job and be successful.
Mhm.
Sometimes you might find yourself in moments where you want to hire someone who might be, because of their sort of background and experiences, may not have the same skills as others in the applicant pool. What I've seen been really effective is that for hiring managers to say, we're going to use mentoring as a way not to exclude individuals, but include them. So where this really shows up very specifically is around hiring individuals. You say, you know what, I know what their gaps are. I've talked to some other folks who might have worked with them doing references. We're going to identify those gaps and be really deliberate about how do we develop young people so that they have the capacity to succeed in this role and also succeed in their next role. That particular strategy means that mentoring is an opportunity to say, how do we bring in people if we're really intentional about diversity and equity? If we know that everyone doesn't have the same opportunities, even though that they might have the same skills and experiences, we can use mentorship as a way of development, as a way of building individuals' capacity so that they don't succeed just in this role, but they also are set up on a really strong trajectory going forward.
I think the dynamic point you raised too around how do we set up or develop a structure that's going to help young people thrive. And so at Mentor, again, because we focus on evidence-based practices and high quality resources, we have our cornerstone document, our elements of effective practice for mentoring, and we've developed supplements throughout the years. And some of our folks who are listening know that. One specific supplement is the workplace mentoring supplement for our elements of effective practice. And one of my colleagues are going to drop that in the chat. And what we have found is support around making sure that young people are introduced to the workplace in a way that feels very empowering, very inspiring is super critical, but also the consistency of maybe who is being selected as mentors. Sometimes a lot of folks sign up because they're excited and interested. I think having high quality mentor training is super important. And that's where Mentors Connect Focus Grow can come in to really make sure that caring adults are feeling clear about what the objectives of the program is, what is their role and responsibility in the mentorship of the young person, and that the young person feels very clear about what can they expect from the relationship too. So having that clarity and clear context really does shape up a conversation, a primary conversation, a preliminary conversation for success. So I really appreciate you kind of lifting that up for us too.
Absolutely. I think to your point, Charlene, like that's really the strength of sort of mentor, is I think about the things that I've done for the first time, or the folks who are with us, they think that you might have done starting a new job, or if you're being a parent, for example, or even managing for the first time, it can feel overwhelming. And to know that there's resources and expertise and support to help you in that process just makes the commitment even that much more deeper and effective. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. I know we lost Mike due to technical issues, and you all were sorry about that. I know Mike had a lot of great pieces to share about the work that's happening at the Aspen Institute, and specifically under the Opportunity Youth Forum that Mike works on in the Community Solutions team. I do know that he wanted to share with you all the importance of kind of DEI work, and that he works on a DEI council on his team. And one of the founders of the Opportunity Youth Forum is not seen as the quote unquote traditional candidate, but the assets that this leader brings to the work are so dynamic, and frankly, couldn't see the work move forward in the progressive way it has without that leader, right? So it's been instrumental to really think about being inclusive and kind of passing the baton to the next emerging leaders, and knowing that leadership just looks different these days, and different is okay. The movement is really more about being able to share the wisdom that we know and that we've seen with folks around what healthy business practices are, but also give space to making sure that it's relevant for the next generation to come. And I think the last question I wanted to ask you, Gerald, before we open it up to our audience that are here with us, it's a question I love to ask everybody who comes to visit us, is what do you want to see in future workplace mentoring programs? What's your vision?
If I could sort of put my vision forth, what I would want to leave us with today is that how do we see mentorship as part of an organization's institutional responsibility? So if we start from the premise that every person who we hire and we consider hiring, we have a commitment to make sure that they have a healthy experience within the organization at a very basic level. This is a place where they can feel safe and they can sort of be themselves in the workplace. And then moving up from that is just a place where they can grow and develop skills. So when I think about the institutional responsibility, for me, I really think about that within three buckets, which I call sort of the out, up, and across. One is that how do we make sure that those young people are able to develop peer relationships, the individuals who they can grow with as they move throughout their career? And then secondly, how do they develop up? Who are those individuals who are in positions of leadership and power that can develop them, impart some skills and knowledge? And again, that they can share their experiences with them, make sure that the organization is changing to accommodate, as Charlene mentioned, these sort of broad ranges of difference. And the second piece is also looking out. Part of the challenge, particularly with organizations that are not very diverse, is that they may say, we're not diverse. I don't know if I want to bring in someone who might not be comfortable. And that's where the conversation ends and they throw up their hands. But part of the institutional responsibility means, can you look outside your organization to say, are there development programs? Are there other affinity groups that I know we're bringing in these individuals that I want to connect them with and make sure that they're supported? That takes a responsibility off of young people, folks who are in entry-level roles, and it rightly puts the responsibility on organizations to say, we have this commitment to make sure that everyone is successful, and we provide them with the tools and the resources to achieve their full and best potential.
I love that. I love that so much. Like conversations around institutional responsibility for the managers, for frankly, managers of managers to support them through that, and how managers are responsible for developing people. So it's a different layer of responsibility at the job or in the work site. I really appreciate that insight. Thanks to all so much for sharing your insight to workplace mentoring. I know that we had kind of a question comment in the Q&A from Priscilla, and so we're going to do our best to answer that live. And then I also want to share with you all the Mentor's Workplace Equity Pledge and new resources that have come out for folks. So Priscilla, I hope I get this right. I'm reading it as a mentor for youth at a company, or as a mentor program for youth at a company. You really want to make sure that the company continues high quality mentoring through their DEI practices, because folks do not always know each other, and that might be helpful for folks to stay connected. I hope I'm reading the comment correctly, and if you want to further elaborate live or verbally, please feel free to let us know, and we'll do our best. to support that. The other questions that we had were around kind of body language and how does body language work when you're talking on the phone. And so I had noted to that colleague that the inflection of your voice is important, and to see more information at centervention.com. And so some folks on the line might be familiar and some folks might not, that the inflection of your voice, right? When you can't see somebody, it's really the sense, your sense of hearing is what you're kind of holding on to. And so that really helps kind of know if it's a positive or affirmative. We've heard someone sound angry. We've heard someone with joy. We've heard someone sound kind of bored. So that hopefully helped a little bit too, with the question that was posed by Jane. And then Susie asked, will the slides be available after the presentation? Yes, I think the NMRC does share the slides via email, and the recording goes to the National Mentoring Resource Center, so that you all can visit that website for the recording, and to please feel free to share with your colleagues and friends. Well, thank you all so much for engaging with us in conversation, and feel free if you have any more questions to type it in the chat. What I'd like to do is transition us back to the slide deck very quickly